All right. Hello. All right. We are going to get right into it and talk about three things you need to know, be, do, have, whatever, all the categories. If you want direct spirit communication, I'm gonna dive right into it because, as synchronicity would have it, okay, because there's no coincidences, right? So everything's happening as an orchestration. So that's what happened this morning. I watched a YouTube video interview. Those of you who follow Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett had a fascinating interview with a psychologist. And here was the description. It totally fits what I'm talking about today. Okay. Top psychologist Donald Hoffman: seeing true reality would kill us, and I can prove it to you. That was the description of the interview. Okay, so we're going to talk about this, unpack a little bit of it about the nature of reality and why, in our view, that is one of the things, I would actually say it's the most important thing that you need to learn, understand, kind of process, right, in order to have direct communication across the veil. This is, in fact, the foundation piece, because if you don't understand how existence works, then how are you going to even do this? Because you have to believe what you believe in order to create it, right? So if you don't get it, that you are literally the programmer of your virtual simulation as well as the player in the game that is your life, then you won't really get far, because you have to unload, get clear, just break free of the limiting beliefs and assumptions you have about reality. So do you understand why that's the first piece? Because otherwise you're living your life with the old program, which is very limiting. So let me go into a little bit. I'm going to quote a little bit from this interview, and I'm going to later drop a link to the actual interview for you. And if there's interest in it, I'll even create another video that condenses it, like the main points. But here's where, like, the hair on my neck kind of went up when I heard Stephen Bartlett himself ask Donald Hoffman this question. So just give a listen, because it was just mind blowing. Because after listening to Hoffman describe how reality is not what we see, because he says that straight out, and why science has proven we're only seeing like 0% of what the reality really is. So because of that, Stephen Bartlett was confounded. So he asked, this is what he asked. So Stephen says, I was just playing out the scenario then, that if you removed my eyes and you removed my ears and my nose and my ability to sense, temperature and things like that, if you removed all of my senses, I thought, well, if I was the only person on earth and removed all of my senses, what would reality be? Because if you remove my senses, reality no longer exists as far as I'm aware of. But that doesn't mean nothing exists. And I'm wondering what that nothing would be like. Because if you could just imagine, if reality was wiped off the earth, right, he's saying, and you remove all your senses, well, what is in that space after all your senses are gone? In fact, if I remember, there's a movie, I kind of figure out what it was. There was a movie in which there was some sort of pandemic or some sort of disease happened, and people were losing all of their senses, literally losing their sense of touch, sight, sound, and everything. And so they couldn't even feel their body. It was a really amazing movie, kind of scary, right? But then you still exist. So this is why he was asking the question. So I was playing out this, like, well, if we think about ghosts and the afterlife, maybe there was no reason from a survival perspective that I even needed to be able to see or acknowledge them. Maybe it just didn't help. Maybe it actually would have hurt me to have, because I would have been so cognitive, it would be so demanding cognitively to process all that information. So anybody that could process all that information wouldn't have been good at reproducing, therefore they wouldn't survive. Therefore, they wouldn't even be here. So maybe those of us that are here, we're just really good at ignoring the other dimensions. That's what our mathematics say. So what he's basically saying is, and what Hoffman is saying is that the reason most people can't see the other dimensions is because it actually uses up a lot of energy to do that. And our ancestors were programmed to survive. You're programmed to reproduce. You're not programmed to see all the different levels of reality because it takes up too much energy and you wouldn't live long enough because you only have so much energy. And this point was really driven home to me recently when I had a mild concussion. And in my conscious mind, right, I'm thinking, what's the big deal? You know, I just hit my head. I can still think. I can still, you know, do the things I need to do, right? Like, what's the big deal? But then I realized through researching about concussions that your brain is using a lot of energy all the time. And of course, if you're online like I am all the time, and I'm teaching all the time, and I'm doing all these things, all these tasks, my brain is consuming a lot of calories, a lot of energy. And so I had to take a break and like not process anything, not think of anything. So I really understood what Hoffman was saying, that we're programmed for survival first, to reproduce, especially, right? Because if you don't reproduce, you don't survive, you don't reproduce, then the species doesn't go on. So do you understand that that's why we may have initially maybe even had these abilities, but we couldn't put too much focus on that because you got to be right here, right now, focused on, you know, the bear that may be coming charging at you, or get out of the way of the lion or even the dinosaur, whatever. So you're programmed to just survive. So your senses are focused on that. But of course, humanity is evolving and we don't have to worry about survival so much. So, but what Hoffman said in response to Bartlett was this. He says, I think that your intuitions on that are quite right. That if you pay attention to anything other than what allows you to have kids, like reproduction, you're wasting your time from an evolutionary point of view. Perception is expensive. That's what I experienced. Like, I thought, oh God, how can it be so taxing on me to just read emails or something or look at my phone? But I found it was exhausting because in my case, my brain needed to repair and recharge because I've had the concussion. So my body was healing. But if you're trying to process like this reality and the unseen world, that's going to take a lot of energy, right? So he says, perception is expensive. It takes a lot of calories, and you have to eat a lot of food to run your brain and power your eyes and your ears. So you need to do shortcuts. You need to make your sensory systems not chew up so much of your energy. The more expensive your perceptual systems are, the more you got to eat to power those, right? You have to eat more. So, which means you have to go out there and forage and put yourself in harm's way. So there's a trade-off. We try to do things cheaply in evolution. And going for the truth, you don't need to actually go for the truth because that's very, very expensive. Okay, so let me know what you think about that in the comments. You know, like, does that make sense to you about how your need to survive means you have to perceptually narrow your field of focus? So, of course, our ancestors were not that interested in perceiving the spirit world. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't doing that, because clearly there have always been people in different tribes, right? The indigenous people, they do connect to the spirit world, but then their lives are different. And they're not, at this point, you know, they're not necessarily having to run away from the lions and tigers or whatever. They've established a certain order and security in their environment. Okay, but can you understand that this is why we're still dealing with this kind of residual handicap in a sense, right? That we're not able to see all the different levels of reality. And yet science is actually proving now that those dimensions, those realities exist, that time and space as we see it, space here, right? All this is an illusion. And Hoffman talks about the fact that we are the programmers of this reality because it's not fixed, it's not stable at all. So this is why we teach a lot about the laws of creation, nature of reality. We're going to go more deeply into this in our Be Your Own Medium program, which for those of you who didn't know, if you notice, we changed our channel title to Be Your Own Medium to directly reflect what we actually teach and what we are known for, to help people be their own medium, that you don't need to go to a psychic or a medium, that you are a medium, you are a psychic by virtue of you being a soul. Every soul is born that way. Every soul is God in a physical body. When Jesus said, I am the Son of God, he wasn't saying he was only one. He was saying, well, we all are. That was really his message. We are all the sons, daughters of God. We're all aspects of Source, without exception, and that we're all one. So I love my brother as I love myself because I am my brother, my sister. I am everyone, right? So you have to kind of shift your understanding of who you are, that you're not this solitary individual being that's only this body, that this body that you and I are exists within our soul. The soul is too big to squeeze even a bit of itself. It can't get into it doesn't have to get into our body because it created your body. So you're in your soul. So what we teach is all about expanding your consciousness, expanding your understanding of who you are, so that you start to see, feel, hear, and know more, because you shut that down. And it's basically because of, ancestral experience and having to have this belief that, okay, I have to conserve my energy. I can only see what I can see in front of me. But you don't have to live on that survival level anymore. You just don't. But the leftover programming is what we're all breaking free of, so that then we can start to see, feel, hear, sense more. And actually, from my studies recently, it's come to my attention that we actually have more than 5 or even 6 senses. We actually have 360 senses, that we're so much bigger and broader in our ability to perceive than we've been taught. So one of the first things that if you want to have direct communication across the veil, whether that's with a loved one or guides or angels, it doesn't matter who it is, any being in spirit world, you first need to kind of deprogram that, right? And understand, wait, what I was taught about nature of reality is not true. That's the first thing that you have to kind of break apart. And so that's why Hoffman's discussion, his interview with Stephen Bartlett, was so mind-blowing. I mean, at the time that I last looked, it's only been a few days or whatever. I think it's like 1.1 million something people have watched it, and it's getting a lot of comments. And of course, there's some people there that are very upset. They don't want their map of reality to be shaken up, right? One person, I had to laugh, one person said, well, okay, thanks for the conspiracy theory. Because when you talk about the nature of reality, you might as well be talking about religion, because beliefs about existence are religion. It's a strongly held belief that people have about what this world is. Okay, so I give Bartlett credit for going down this rabbit hole. I think it was very brave of him. And I think he is probably surprised, his team are surprised that people are going, thank you for saying this. Oh my God, this is an important conversation that and I invite you to go on that channel and on that interview and add your point of view, okay? Because he's finally gone that direction and talking about ghosts, right? In the afterlife. I don't know if I've heard him say that before. Okay, so this is the first thing, the first one thing. There's three. Actually, there's more than three, but we're covering just three today. But this to me is the basis. You have to deprogram yourself, and you can't do that if you don't know the truth about reality, but the nature of existence. And here we have science backing it, folks. Science, okay? This is not like woo-woo theory. I think it does help that Hoffman had a near-death experience. And I think if we wait long enough, more scientists are going to have near-death experiences and then say, yeah, there's something more to this world than what we see. But they're beginning to see it. And I feel that science and spirituality are coming closer to together. Not talking about science and religion, because religion is dogma. Spirituality is connecting to source energy without an intermediary, like a church, like a priest, or even a psychic or a medium, is having direct experience of the other side, of God, of your higher self. This is what ascension is about. It's no more middle people, okay? It's you going direct to your soul, to your higher self, trusting your own God-given intuition, whether you want to use the word God or not, because you are part of the all. And if you really understood that you are part of all that is, and therefore everything in existence must also be part of all that is, then any, let's say, conflict you have with others, you realize it's only conflict with yourself, okay? Because they are you and you are them too. So how can there be really any division or any judgment leveled against any group, no matter what they believe, no matter what they've done, that they are an expression of source, of God? So how crazy is it that some religions are actually so judgmental when they're supposedly spouting the idea that, they are part of creator, whatever their definition of creator is? Like, wait, so you're the only ones that are part of God, but everybody else that disagrees with you isn't? You're either one with all that is. You're either the son or child or parent or daughter, whatever you define yourself to be, of God, or you're not. Like, what is it? If you are, then so is everybody else. Because that's the definition of source God, is oneness. God doesn't say, oh, there's only me and some of you, like the select few. That is religion interjecting its human bias, and you know what I mean? Like the sense of being special. That's the ego. And the ego is not of God. The ego is of the human personality, which is founded on fear and separation. In source energy, there is no separation. There is no disconnection. You cannot be separated from your divinity because you are an extension of that divinity. So if you're an extension, it doesn't mean you have limited powers. No, you have all the powers of the creator because you're a consciousness. So your consciousness is God's consciousness. And as that consciousness, you create your reality. You're doing it right now. You're just doing it, many of you, unconsciously. So ascension and awakening and direct spirit communication, they're all connected. It's about waking up to that truth that, wait, I am defining my experience. And therefore, if I redefine my idea of who I am and what's possible, then I can create almost anything within only the limitation of what you yourself have set in place for your life, okay? Because I don't want people to think that literally you can have anything. You can within the construct that you as a soul pre-planned before you got here. So if you pre-planned that you were going to deal with some physical, problem, dysfunctional issue, then you're going to deal with that because that's what you set up. But that's not the case for every challenging issue that we face, whether that's physical or emotional or what have you. It depends. It's all case by case basis. Okay, do you guys understand that? Yeah, as Danny says, okay, got to pull this up. Like, yes, we ourselves are God. You're all God. God in physical body. And when you go home to the other side, you remember that. But the reason you don't remember it right away, although some people are beginning to more quickly than others, but the reason you come to it usually slowly, and there are always exceptions, is because you wanted to have an experience from a different perspective. So you wanted to forget your divinity so that you could experience the contrast of not knowing that you're God. Okay, because there's value in that. There's value in having a very different experience. Then you can't have that on the other side because you're only oneness. So you can't even, touch on that, because on the other side, there is non-duality. There's only oneness. In this reality and others that exist, there is duality. So opposites, the contrast or polarity. Okay, so you're here for the polarity. You're here for the contrast, which means, yes, life can be challenging, but you wanted to play the game. What point is there in playing a game where everything is easy? Like you play in the video game and you win all the time and you never lose and everything just happens effortlessly. That's not a game. Or if it is a game, the game's called boredom. It's not challenging. You want to be stretched. You want to figure out a problem. You want to ponder on something that you've never been able to do in any other existence. So he said, yeah, I'll take that on. That would be really interesting. Because on a soul level that you can't be destroyed. Nothing bad's going to happen to you permanently. And if you really hate what you're experiencing in any existence, your soul can just take you out. Not your necessarily your conscious self. Okay, that's not the real you. That's like a role you're playing. But your soul knows that, well, if I really, really, really hate it, I'll just leave. And some do. Okay. And I'm not talking about suicide. I'm talking about that the soul is always in charge. It's the programmer. It has your source code. So it can, if necessary, if it deems necessary, it can change the code. But this is not your conscious self. You have two selves. You have a higher self and a physical self. Your higher self, connected to your soul, is the one really running things, but it lets your physical human self interject its limiting beliefs because it says, okay, fine, we're going to have a different experience with this limiting belief. That's cool because it's in for the game, right? It's like, okay, this is going to be a bit tough that we're going to take on this challenge, but I'm up for it. Why not? Because I know as a soul that that's just going to help me grow more. So I embrace it. Like, let's go for it. Okay, so that's one thing that's important. Understand the nature of reality. Revisit your concepts of what you believe is real. Because as being expressed in this interview, okay, none of this is real. It isn't. And you can change it. So we're going to dive deeper into it in our Be Your Own Medium program that you're invited to join. There's a link down below right now. You can join. By the way, before I forget, we have a special going on just from now, August 1st until August 5th, midnight Pacific time, that you can get in for just $19. And you get actually a free workshop that we're teaching next week on awakening clairsentience. We're going to teach you how to expand your senses so that you can feel the emotion of the other side, your loved one on the other side, feel them more easily emotionally, but also physically. Physically, yet non-physically, if you know what I mean. Like not necessarily like 3D touch, but energetic, like tingles, like chills, like presence, like pressure on the body. So many things are possible. And if you watch this interview on Diary of a CEO, you begin to realize there's more that's possible than we have ever can imagine. Okay. So once you start breaking down that limiting belief, then the doors to the other side swing open wider. Okay. Because the only reason those doors are somewhat closed to people is because they don't believe it's possible. Okay. So that's the second thing you need to do if you want direct spirit communication. You need to believe. Do you need to believe 100%? No. No. You don't need to believe 100%. You just have to be willing to suspend your disbelief and let go of doubt and say, okay, let me just see what happens if I just believe and explore it, right? So just have this attitude of curiosity or even playfulness. Like, what's the worst going to happen? Nothing. But you've been just brainwashed by maybe watching a lot of scary movies or talk about demons or all that kind of baloney. And so you've got to get rid of that if that's you. Okay. Because when I've worked with people, and I have for a couple of years now, worked with people to help them connect to their loved ones directly on their side, the only people that weren't able to make the connection were people that had fear of the afterlife. And one person, she didn't realize she had fear of it until I was deep into the session. And I knew she wasn't like getting any movement. And I said, by the way, is there any chance you're afraid of what you can't see? She goes, oh, yeah, I'm terrified of that. I said, okay, explain to me, right? I told her, tell me what you're talking about. Now, I think she was from Southeast Asia, and her mother was very superstitious and very fearful. So the mother used to tell her as she was growing up, she used to tell the daughter, you know, if you're not good, something's going to get you. Like, talk about programming, like spirits are going to get you. Like, you have to be good or spirits are going to get you. So she realized that she had a lot of fear about what she couldn't see. And I thought, okay, stop. We can't go further with this because there's no point, because you can't relax enough to perceive what you can't see if you're afraid. I mean, doesn't that make sense? Like, how are you going to perceive the invisible world if you're terrified of the invisible world? Okay, so if that's you, then you have to dismantle that belief. Okay, it's just going to get in the way. The other type of person that had difficulty, and even in some cases it was impossible for them to connect to the other side, to their loved one, were people who were trying really hard. I mean, really, like they couldn't stop like trying to micromanage it. They were trying. And like when I would say to them, okay, just relax and just notice whatever's happening to you, whatever you're feeling on any level, just notice it. That's all. Just notice it. Be aware of it. That's it. They couldn't stop themselves. They were trying to imagine something. They were trying to make something happen. They just couldn't get out of their own way. Okay. So when you're trying too hard, and I've spoken about this recently in your medium group, when you try to do something, you're actually pushing it away, because the part of you that's trying is your physical mind that has programmed to believe that it cannot get what it wants unless it tries. I have to do something, right? Like I have to reach for it. I have to work for it. I have to work really hard for things. That is actually completely the opposite of how we actually are to manifest with grace and ease. Okay. And again, I'm going to teach more about that in our program. We're going to talk about the more oblique way of getting what you want. And getting what you want requires not going direct. So here's where in the past, when I've been teaching, I usually add, you remember Star Wars, where Yoda is training Luke, training him to lift the spacecraft out of the water and teaching him how to do it. but he's teaching him not to do it by trying, right? And so Luke was like all confused, like, what are you talking about? Like Luke is trying really, really hard, focus his mind on lifting the spaceship. And Yoda says his perfect quote, right? Do or not do, there is no try. You just do it. You just know that it rises. You just feel it. You just allow it to happen. That's the intuitive way, right? Psychic way is like force, but that wasn't even what Yoda was talking about. He was really coming from a spiritual point of view approach, right? Where you don't do anything, you allow it to happen. You get out of your way. You get your physical mind off the side, and you just then are left with your higher mind, your higher self, which just knows what it needs to do, if there's even any doing involved, because there might not be. There might just be you holding the state in which, or just the knowing that the spaceship just rises, and you can feel the resonance of it. And what's happened is you've shifted into the reality where the spaceship is off the water, because there was already a reality in which that spaceship was not in the water. But you can't get to that reality if you're trying to just lift the spaceship. Because all you're going to get by trying to lift the spaceship is more trying to lift the spaceship. The more you focus on trying, the more of that energy of trying you are creating. So the source consciousness that you are knows that it's not about effort, not in the way that in 3D we define it. It's about allowing that reality to reveal itself by just knowing it's already there. And you becoming the person that just knows that. So it's an internal thing, not an external thing of effort. Now, I'm not saying that in this world that we're never meant to take action, because this is the other thing. Because humans being the way they are, we think we hear something and we say, oh, this is how I should always do it. No. Spiritual development, truly being more of having expanded awareness, means you have to understand it's not this or that. It's this and that. Okay? It's both. It's both. And it's about you being able to be in neutrality and knowing which way do I go? Do I lean into this one place where I just allow it to happen, or am I leaning into this other place where, okay, there is some action involved, but it's guided action. It's not default. But see, again, humans want to have just a default mode, like one reaction. Okay, I should always just do nothing. That's not what we're saying at all. There are times when that is the appropriate approach and response, and there are going to be times when it absolutely isn't, when there is something to do. But it's not in the drawing. It's not in the like breaking down the wall. It's not in like, if I exert more effort. No, seldom is it that. And if it was that, you would know to the core of your being. But you can't assume that more effort is the way to go. And yet look at the world around you. Everybody is efforting, always putting more effort, and very seldom are they using their intuition and going with, oh no, that this feels like where my energy wants to flow. I don't feel like it's to do this. It's only going to be revealed to you in the moment, right? Not in that moment, not in advance, not like you're not going to get a memo from your higher self, from your soul, like, oh, by the way, on Tuesday at 4:00, this is what you need to do. Existence doesn't work like that. It's always in the present, in the now, ever changing, millisecond to millisecond. So you're always getting the feedback. It knows it doesn't have to give you the memo in advance, that you'll get it when you need it. when you need to take action, because it would drive you a little bit crazy. What they're showing me is, can you imagine if you had all this wall of memos? Like, wait, they told me this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. Like, you would go insane. So Spirit, understanding that, said, no, you'll just know what you need to do, because that's how it works in the spirit world. You are living intuitively in the flow. And you knew as a soul that you came here to remember who you are and that you can live intuitively. And you're going to remember it from this new perspective as this person living out your life, having this new experience that you couldn't have unless you came into this world of contrast. So does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. By the way, I told people, okay, I can show your comments on the stage. Let me see if I can show it. Maybe it won't show. I'm threatening you. I guess it won't show. It's going to show I'll show some of your comments. Here's Debbie saying the physical possibilities with our interactions with them can be a lot more than anyone can realize. Yes, Debbie knows for sure. She has direct contact with her husband, who's quite strong. He made sure to let her know that he was around her, does so constantly. Okay, so we're not the only ones. This is why, I see some of your comments here are showing up there on the screen. All right, we're just playing around here with this live stream. So does that make sense to everybody? Do you understand what we mean? Right, Celia says makes sense. Great. So you understand nature of reality, right? You understand that, that you are more than you believe yourself to be. And even if you hear that and you go, again, like, I'm not sure I 100% believe, that's okay. Wouldn't you prefer to believe that? Do you see the advantage to that? So how could it hurt you to not try out the belief? Try it on for size. Nothing bad's going to happen. You can go back to believing the opposite anytime you want to, but why not, like, oh, let me just, like, trying on a new dress. Like, let me just see if I like this style. Maybe I do. How do you know unless you try? Again, there's do or not do. There's no try, right? So you just do it. You just go, I'm going to choose to believe. All your thoughts and beliefs are ones that you just choose. So just try that on for size. I'm going to choose to believe and see what happens as a result. Okay, because nothing bad can happen from you choosing to believe that you're an aspect of creation. By definition, that's impossible for anything negative to happen. I want anybody to can anybody prove me wrong? Like, it's wrong. Something bad will happen if I believe that I'm an aspect of all that is. All right. So the third thing, and to me, this is like non-negotiable, completely non-negotiable. The other ones, I would say they're non-negotiable too, in my view, but you can see how your mileage goes with not accepting it. That's fine. But this last one is, in my view, completely required and non-negotiable. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to change. It means, like, let go of definitions of yourself, let go of, again, your concept of reality, right? Like, it kind of relates to what we've already talked about here. But you'd be surprised how many people are very reluctant to change. I mean, can't you look at the world and see that people are so fixed and with their heels dug in the ground, right? Like saying, no, this is who I am. This is the reality. This is my definition of the world, of what's good and bad. Everybody's like judging everything. Well, that's good, that's bad, you're right, you're wrong. And, it's all subjective because you're all God. And you've been given the free will to live as you please. Why were you given that if there's this omnipresent God that judges everybody and controls everybody? Why would then that God be clamping down? And why wouldn't it clamp down and say, no, you don't get to do that? Why would you be given free will? It's so funny to me how different religions kind of spin that. They're just good at spinning that idea that, well, the reason you're given free will is, like, I don't care how you spin that. You're not given something by accident. It more fits with what Jesus was saying, that he was the Son of God, and he was also then therefore implying that so is everybody else. So if you're the Son of God, like Jesus, son, daughter, what have you, then that means you have free will because God has free will. So you do too. You have all the powers of the Creator. There's no mini you version of you that has limited power, but you're so powerful that you can create the experience, the illusion that you're powerless. God loves you so much. When I say God, I mean all the creation, which is mean all of us love you, love each other so much that we're given the free will to do whatever, knowing that that will help us grow in whatever choices we make, even if the choices we make are from a neutral perspective, from a human level perspective, would be defined as terrible or bad or wrong or horrific even. Because again, this is just a game. Now, I don't mean to say then that if it's a game, that it means it's not of value, because this is, again, a definition that humans would give a game to say, oh, well, if it's just a game, then it doesn't matter. Like, if it's just a game, it's not important. Tell that to anybody who's competing in some game like playing tennis in Wimbledon or something, right? Or the Super Bowl players. Like, you're going to tell them, oh, it's just a game, it's not important. No, the game of life is important because you're here, you wanted to have this full out experience and be challenged and learn and grow. So we're only saying it's a game because we want to emphasize the fact that you create the game and you play the game and you wrote the rules within the laws of creation, because there's only 5 laws of creation that govern everything, that would, if limits, if you want to say limit you, you can say limit you, but they really don't if you really look at the laws of creation, because the first law is that you exist, which means you exist forever. You cannot not exist. Non-existence isn't possible. Once you exist, that's forever. So see how that relates to spirit communication? Your loved ones exist forever, and therefore you can't never not exist. Since they cannot never not exist, then you can connect. You can connect. There are people who are doing that. I know in our program, and I know elsewhere in the world, absolutely, because if one person can do something, that means others can do something. That means others are doing that, whether we ever hear from them or not, doesn't matter. We know that that's happening, okay, because that's how the world is. Got billions of people here. Come on. So does that make sense, everybody? So that's one law of creation. You exist. You cannot ever cease to exist. Once energy is formed, it's eternal. It goes on forever and ever. And non-existence, how can that exist? Non-existence, by definition, doesn't exist. So if I see you and you see me and we see this world, that means it exists, right? Another law of creation is the all is the one, and the one are the all, meaning that basically you and I are part of all that is. So we're both the particle that is God. I'm the individual aspect of creation that is unique, me, unique, you, unique in all of creation. Will always be me. You will always be you. In different facets of you may play out. You have different lives because you're multidimensional, but you'll always be you. You can never cease to be you. But as well as being the piece and particle that you and I are, we're also the oneness of God. So that we're the drop in the ocean, but we're also the ocean, the totality. See what I mean about you're not this or that? You are this and you're that. You are all that is, and you're the piece of all that is. So that is the truth of the spirit world. And when you start to really understand that and embody that and live from that truth, know it to the core of your being, then your vibration is going to expand. Okay, you're going to rise up because you realize I'm not who I was told I was. I'm not my limiting beliefs. I am all that is, and I'm the unique version of me. And yeah, I'm playing this role in the physical world, but it is just a game. Or maybe you, if you want to use another analogy, you're living your own movie, right? Your own reality show, your version. And other people are playing their roles in your version of your reality show. Okay, that's what's really happening. So you have that in mind, like that I am all that is, and I'm the peace. Okay, and that another law of creation is what you put out is what you get back. This comes down to how you create reality. It means that your thoughts create reality. The thoughts that you think, the thoughts that you hold inside. You don't even have to say it. You don't even have to think it actively. That frequency, those thoughts and beliefs, you're broadcasting to the universe continually. Okay, it's being sent out because you're holding it within you. That it makes you who you are. Your unique definitions of who you are, of what reality is. Because again, you're your own God of your own universe. So it's being broadcasted. You cannot help it. It will just happen without trying. This is why people are manifesting the lives they're manifesting, even when they don't know what manifestation is. You're wired that way because you're plugged into the universe that way, and it takes its orders, if you will, from what you're putting out. So you could say, and it's absolutely true, that you're being mirrored back to you yourself. The predominant beliefs and thoughts and even emotions of what you're putting out. The universe cannot help but send that back to you in some form, whether that's a person that comes into your life that is a representation of that, or some experience you have, or you name it. Okay, it's not always going to be a perfect one-to-one match. Like not every single person that you meet is going to be, from your perspective, seem to be a perfect match, because you go, wait, it'll be a mix because you are too. You've got some conflicting beliefs going on. But in any moment, you're getting what's more predominant. But then that could shift in the next millisecond. So there can be some variation there. But when you get your energy, your frequency more aligned with who you truly are, you're going to find that it's more consistent. Meaning that if your thoughts and actions, beliefs, your emotions are more or less positively aligned with love, with the idea of connection and oneness, then that's what the universe has to send you back. But still, once in a while, there could be what spiritists explained to me is kind of like a random thing, just to keep things interesting. And that's you, your higher self, kind of testing you to throw you something that maybe is a little bit of an anomaly. You go, whoa, that was kind of interesting. And this is where what I've come to understand. It's like, okay, I'm just testing myself to see if I can stand in my truth. Can I be tested and know who I really am, even when somebody is coming at me with a little bit of negativity? Can I stand strong in who I know myself to be? Because I want to check in with myself. So that can help in too. So don't think that your life is always going to be like a Disney cartoon, because that would be boring. It really would be boring if it was completely always the same, always perfect, like that movie Pleasantville. That's what just dropped into my mind. It'd be like black and white, like that movie, right? And then the people kind of woke up emotionally and then they were living in color. Well, that's how you want to live. You want to live in color. You want to have some bit of contrast and some variation. And you don't get that in black and white. It's just really stark. Okay. So does that make sense? It isn't really rocket science how reality is, although people might think it is because it's so mind-blowing if you're coming from a different mindset, a different way of believing, looking at the world, that what this is all random, but it's not random. If you look at your life, most people will start to admit that they see a pattern, like there's certain things that keep coming back over and over, certain themes that keep coming. Well, that's because you set up those themes. You set up those challenges. You said, I'm going to explore this challenge, this area. And so our advice to you would be to dive all in with whatever's happening. Now, this is like not exactly the fourth requirement for direct spirit communication, but one thing that will really help with spirit communication, besides the not trying, right? Like the understanding nature of reality and being willing to change, is just to do your best to look at whatever's happening in your life from a positive perspective and see it as something that's being delivered to you for your growth, even if it's something that's really challenging or painful. Okay. We're not ever saying that you should celebrate something unpleasant. That's not what we're talking about. We're saying to look at whatever's happening as something that you could use for your growth, even if it's unpleasant, even if it's tragic. How can I grow from this? How can I take this and make something good come from it? Whether that good is some new awareness I have, maybe some new appreciation I have. How can I turn this into something that benefits me? Because that is what your soul knows is possible for you, or it wouldn't have delivered that challenge to you. It wouldn't have put that obstacle in your place, because it knows that you could look at it and figure out something that you would have never come to that realization without that challenge. Like in a few days, let's see, today's the 1st, in 5 days from now, which will be August 6th, that will mark 5 years since my husband, Alan, died on his 83rd birthday. And at that morning, I leaned over his hospital bed, which was set up in my living room, to on this side of me. And I knew it was his birthday. So I said, okay, I hope you're not going to decide to die on your birthday, because if you do, I'm going to kill you. I mean, I really meant that. And I knew that he would be laughing inside of that, even though he was completely out of it, completely unconscious. And I knew he would laugh. He would have been laughing, going, I know he would have, at that time, I didn't know he was going to pass on that day, but he would have been laughing, going, well, I am going to like get you pissed off, Pam, because I am leaving today. And so he did. And of course I was devastated. And it took me about a good 9 months to really shift most of the grief off. But he came back right away and started talking to me. And he said, we're going to be helping people connect through the veil, which is what we've done. That's why we have our program, Be Your Own Medium. And we invite you to join us if that calls to you. But I don't think I would have changed anything, really. I don't think I would change a thing. I've come to really appreciate the extraordinary journey I'm on that is, to me, rare and beautiful. And yes, it was heartbreaking, but I've never felt more alive. I've never felt more connected to everyone and everything that's part of my life. I didn't have that before. And that's what's about living the contrast. The contrast of death, which is an illusion, brings up the opposite, which is life. Okay, so when you dive into the depth of the illusion of death and you come to realization there is no such thing and that there's only eternal life, your life becomes this incredible experience that is not so multidimensional in nature, then the people are walking around believing that this is the only thing that's real. That's just a shallow existence. And I was living that shallow existence for most of my life, for 68 years of my life, because this month I will turn 73. And I am so profoundly grateful to be here and talking to you like I'm talking to you, and to meeting people that are here watching us in our in our program, who are having their own experiences with their loved ones on the other side, because I didn't know that that was possible. Even though I was a psychic channel and a medium, I didn't know that people could continue their relationship. Alan didn't know that until he crossed over and he came to understand, oh, we're going to continue our marriage. He was surprised too until he left this world. Okay. So here I thought maybe he and I were the only ones. Boy, was I completely mistaken. I was completely stunned to find out that other people were having these experiences, and some of them are having even more profound experiences. Okay. It's like no comparison here. And I'm not comparing my experience to anybody's, but that's the truth, that there are people having these mind-blowing experiences with their loved ones, whether it's sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, partners, spouses, you name it. Okay. It's incredible. And I wish more people would understand this, but I've come to realize now that most of humanity is not ready for this. Most people who have, quote, lost, and I use the term very with reservation because you can't lose anybody because when you're all one with all that is. But, and Alan says, well, they've misplaced their loved one. Okay. Those who have misplaced their loved ones who transitioned temporarily, okay, you can't lose them, and so once you understand that and you move forward on that and say, well, how can I connect? And if it's really your part of your theme in this life, you'll know that's you because you'll just stick with it. But I've seen that some people don't stick with it, and that's because Spirit has told me they were not really ready, and maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't. But I know that most people are not ready, okay, and that's okay. And so this is not necessarily going to become a worldwide phenomenon, maybe just in our part of our universe that we're in, but not across the globe necessarily. And I don't think it can be. Just like how most people do not believe that, that we really don't die. They have a lot of question about. They're hoping, but a lot of people they're just on the fence. And yet at the same time, I know I've done the research, and some 70% or 77% of people in the US believe in some sort of afterlife. Now their definition of it may very much vary, but they believe in something. Okay. Very interesting that you might believe there's an afterlife, but then be really unsure that you could continue to connect with someone after they transition. Okay, that's another big leap. That, oh, because there's a lot of judgment about that. We've talked about that on our channel. You can look for videos about that. That people just were told by mediums who, give me a break. You're a medium and you talk to the so-called dead, but you're telling people that they need to let them go, but yet you are encouraging them to come back for a reading, maybe next month, maybe every month, whatever, but yet you're telling them they need to let them go. Well, how does that work, really? That you tell them to let them go, but yet you're going to be the go-between? You're going to talk to them? for the person. Like, come on, very convenient. Yeah, you need to let them go except when I bring them through for you. No, you are the best medium for your loved ones and for your guides, clearly, and for your angels, obviously. Why wouldn't it be the same thing for a loved one? If people can channel their spirit guides, why can't they channel their loved ones? This is why we teach mediumship differently, because we are teaching channeling in place of that. Because mediumship, this is the truth now. Mediumship exists as a particular training. You cannot deny that. There are schools that teach mediumship, okay? When you say that you teach something, anything, and you're taking the label, like I'm saying, I teach mediumship, what I'm taking with it is all the definitions and assumptions that all the practitioners of mediumship have about it. I cannot separate myself from that. So in our case, because we're talking about ongoing connection and merging with the spirit for the experience of the relationship that goes beyond verbal communication, but is physical, emotional, you name it, it's totally on many, many different levels, then mediumship doesn't cut it. So we are more comfortable saying that we're teaching channeling, beginning with channeling your higher self so that you have a connection with who you truly are, which is going to raise your frequency, which is going to evolve you. Okay. And then channeling your loved one is a bit easier because you have that piece in place, that you are comfortable channeling and merging with who you truly are. Mediumship doesn't really teach that. And again, it has its own definitions and assumptions and the way it's taught, which Alan says he doesn't want any part of because he was trained as a medium. And he says that doesn't really fit. It doesn't really match what we're teaching. We're teaching you how to be the God version of you. Channeling is more aligned with that. It's more, I would say, and this is just my opinion, okay? People can hate on me and say I'm wrong, and I don't really care because I get to choose the belief I have chosen. But channeling is more spiritual in focus because it's connecting you with spirit, not just loved ones who on the other side, but everything on the other side. Mediumship is really focused on the deceased. Although it's all related, it's still defined as bringing closure to people. That's a big piece of mediumship that mediums are taught. They're taught to help people find closure. What does closure mean? Closure means to encourage the client to let the loved one go. Well, I don't want any part of that because I'm not letting Alan go and he doesn't really want to be let go. And so therefore, we're not calling it mediumship, but yet we're saying be your own medium because that's how you understand connecting to a loved one, right? So if I said be your own channel, that would have a different feel. Do you understand what I mean? Like it'd be like, what does it mean, channel? Like be your own channel? But when I say be your own medium, it means be a medium who's somebody who connects to a spirit who was once in a body. So that part is accurate, but the way we teach, quote, mediumship is coming at it in an oblique way, which is actually the better way to learn or master anything, is come at it sideways, meaning like I'm not teaching you to be a medium like a professional medium because I know that that's not the way. And I know that because I've had so many people join our program who said they studied mediumship and it didn't really get them where they wanted to go. They really didn't get connection with their loved one. I've had so many people tell me that I realized, okay, that must be the truth because, so many people like constantly tell me that. This is why channeling is a more direct path to direct spirit communication. Because especially if you start with channeling your higher self and that you have a firm connection with who you really are and you're able to bring forth the guidance, and not only in words that you write or you speak into a recorder, but that you are feeling the guidance of the higher self, because the higher self, just like spirits, communicates non-verbally. Okay, that's the other thing that I don't know if they covered that in mediumship, because spirits prefer to communicate without words. Because on the other side, you just know what the other person is saying or feeling or experiencing. You just know because you have what's called telepathy, where you have empathy, where you feel and therefore know what they're trying to tell you or what they are feeling, experiencing. So we're not limiting it to just say, I want to get the message in language, but to let it come through in all the different multisensory ways that it comes through, because that's actually how spirit communication works on its highest level. It's not just words, language, whether that's English or whatever language you speak. You notice in your dreams, you have dreams where you are having experiences and having communication, but you don't necessarily hear people even talking. You just know. So your dream time is more like how it is in the spirit world, where you're just having these experiences that are physical and emotional and getting messages, but they're not in this format, right? In the physical 3D world format, and yet it's very real. It is real. That is the real world. There's something that I said to somebody today in our group. We're talking about astral projection, or talking about out of body and that kind of thing. And why this world, you know why this world feels so dense, so heavy? It's actually because it takes a lot of energy to densify this reality, because it's not real. So it's as if reality and your consciousness has to work really hard to collapse the energy and make it seem to be tangible and physical and immovable. And that's why it feels heavy. Heavy doesn't mean negative, not bad. It just means, God, it's kind of weighted. Okay, so when you expand, you literally lighten up, and that's where reality then becomes more malleable, and you can create what you prefer as you lift up out of the matrix that is so dense. And so understanding all of this is, in our view, really important if you want to evolve, because ultimately, all those three things I said that you need for spirit communication, your ultimate goal with all of that goes even further, because you're attempting to raise your frequency to what's known as fourth density. And fourth density is where you are a closer proximity to, although there's no real distance in time-space definition, but you're closer in vibration to the fifth dimension, which is the spirit world. Fourth is the bridge. Fourth density is where you can be quasi-spiritual, where because you cannot be a fully spirit being unless you drop the body. But when you're in fourth density, your body, you still have a body, okay, because you're still in this world, but you're at the higher level of it, right? This is what some people mistakenly think they're talking about when they talk about rising to fifth dimension. There's no such thing. Fifth dimension is in fifth density. Okay, they're all connected. So and that's non-physical. So how can you be in the fifth dimension if you're still in a body? But your consciousness that you are, because you're a mind, okay, your mind is who you are, your consciousness is who you are, your mind can travel to fifth dimension. And you can perceive that world more easily, more clearly, when your frequency has risen to fourth density. And this is really what we're teaching in Be Your Own Medium, is to teach you to raise your frequency. And when you do that, your psychic ability, which you always have had, becomes more self-evident to you. You don't have to develop something you were born with. Think about it. Like, do you have to develop your ability to see what's in front of you? No, unless you're born blind. Okay, you don't have to develop psychic ability, people. You were born with it. You have to remove what's blocking you from believing in it. Yeah, that's possible. But it's not something you have to be trained in. Neither do you have to be trained to be a medium unless you're going to do it professionally, because then that's a whole different thing. Whole different thing. Just like you don't have to be trained to heal yourself because you're born a consciousness that is connected to source. You are born to heal. You're born to be a psychic for yourself. You're born to be a medium for those you love on the other side by virtue of the bonds of love that you share with them, which means you have access, which means they want to talk to you. They may not want to talk to that medium. I've had that happen. I know people who've had that happen. Their loved one didn't want to talk to the medium. Alan didn't like the medium that I consulted, and he told her all the wrong things, which really pissed her off. And I don't blame her, because she knew she was picking up on him. She heard him. But what she didn't realize was that he didn't like her. So he was telling her all the opposite things about himself that made me laugh. I didn't realize he was playing with her. But they do things like that, okay? Because they are not dead. They are alive, and they have their preferences. And they might go, I don't want you talking to that person, honey. Like, I'm not going to go there. And so I was wise enough, aware enough to realize later that, oh my God, he was just messing with her. And in that way, proving that, he was there, and proving that she was actually a very good medium. But because he found her very egotistical and very in her head, even though she's very definitely talking to him, right, hearing him, he said, I don't want anything to do with her. And he says, and I don't want to have anything to do with any other mediums either, because most of them have got a lot of issues. And so I said, okay, I'm not talking to them anymore. But you, my friend, don't need to get training in that way to be a medium. And I don't want you to buy into the belief system that most mediumship teachers have, okay, because that's going to limit you. So channeling is a better way to go. So whether you study channeling with us or some other teacher, go down that road, because most people who teach channeling are not burdened by the limiting beliefs of the conventional mediumship training. And Alan should know, because he studied mediumship with someone who was very well known in England as a medium. She used to give readings to, I think, the staff of the British royalty, like not the royals themselves, but I mean some of the people. She got to know people that were in the royal household, like staff. She would do readings for them, okay, because she was that well known. But he said that's just the old belief system, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. Because Alan always wondered, when he was in a body as a medium, he would always wonder, like, how do I know, Pam, that I'm really talking to the dead and I'm not just reading the dead? So if you're new to our work, you may not understand this, because we talked about before, but a medium, if they're really good, can actually just give you a reading of your loved one and give you all the details that any evidential medium can give you. But you will not hear mediums admitting that. I have personally heard them say that to me, okay? But the ones that are out there that are practicing, I don't think you're ever going to hear them admit that, say that, oh, well, I can just get the information by reading their energy, their aura, okay? Because, again, you can't, what you put out, you get back. Your being is broadcast to the universe. There are no secrets in the universe. So a medium, a psychic, is good enough, and I'm not saying all of them can do it, but some of them are good enough that they can read the spirit and give you all the secrets. And I mean everything. So you can't really be 100% sure that they're actually talking to your loved one. You cannot know for sure that they're telling you their truth. They could be interjecting their belief, for example, that you need to let them go. And I have heard mediums tell people that, tell clients of ours that, students of ours that that, oh, your loved one says you need to let them go, when we knew darn well that that's not what their loved one really wants. But that is just the belief of the medium, and they're just saying that to you because they're not going to admit that they're just reading their loved one. So this is why, to me, evidential mediumship is a bit, I would say, to put it mildly, problematic, because it goes into question any so-called evidence that you get. You have to 100% trust the medium and believe that when they tell you that, no, I'm not reading your loved one, I'm either talking to them or I'm not. And if they're truly of integrity, they will admit to you when they're not able to hear them or pick up on them. And there are mediums who will do that, who'll say, oh, I'm not getting anything. But there are also mediums who don't want to refund you, so they'll just read the loved one. I heard a well-known medium who has a channel admit that if the spirit isn't communicating, they're quiet, she'll start reading them to see if she'll get them to open up. What she never said was, what does she do if they still don't talk? She didn't admit anything. She just said, oh yeah, I'll start reading them because maybe they'll start talking to me. I found it really interesting that she didn't answer that unasked question, right? Like, well, what do you do if they don't want to talk? Because if you start already reading them and getting information, and the client is like, oh yeah, that's right, that's true. Well, aren't you going to be inclined to keep going, even if the loved one never opens up? I don't think any medium is going to say, well, they're not talking to me now, because then how did you give what you just gave? See what I mean? It's a very tricky, slippery slope. And this is why, like I said, there are mediums who are very of integrity and will be honest and tell you that they're not sensing your loved one, but there's just as many probably who won't and who will just start reading them. And you will never know the difference. And the only reason that's ever a concern is if they tell you something, which would be a lie, that you need to let them go, that they want you to move on, right? Or that it's wrong for you to keep the lines of connection and communication open. If anyone ever tells you that, right there, they've kind of revealed who they truly are, that they're just telling you what they were taught. Because that is what they're taught to tell you, to give you supposedly some closure, because they've been taught that that's what you need. You need to let them go. Oh, and they believe that the spirit of the loved one is going to be held back if you don't let them go. We are such an egotistical species to think that we are so all-powerful that we are really able to hold a spirit back. And neither do we understand that we as spirits are multidimensional and that we can go anywhere, that we can be here with a loved one who's still in a body, and we can explore the universe at the same time. And this is what we mean. We're coming back full circle to why it's important to understand the nature of reality. Most mediums probably don't understand the nature of reality, and yet they're supposedly intermediaries between this reality and the next. Well, there's a problem there. All right. So any questions there in the live chat? See, everybody's quiet here. Okay, Debbie says, higher self. I get more of a knowing, but I hear my husband through the veil in his voice. Yeah, that's great. But then I know that Jeff is really strong in projecting to you. And not every spirit on the other side is that strong, although they can learn. Oh, Melissa says, I was trained as a medium, but I never pursued it, and now I know why. There's nothing wrong with mediumship or mediums, okay? I want to make clear. I'm not hating on mediums, because I get accused of that all the time. Like you're being unfair to mediums. I could, no, it's like, can't you see that I can be both pro and con when it comes to mediumship. It's like, I'm neutral. I'm just telling you the truth as I know it, and you can take it or leave it. You don't have to believe anything I tell you. Ever. Don't believe it. Doesn't feel true to you, then let it go. I'm just telling you what I've experienced in 38 years, but that doesn't mean I'm right either. It wouldn't mean I'm right if I experienced it for, I don't know, 68 years or 108 years. I mean, it's still all relative. I'm just telling you based on what I have experienced, what Alan has told me, what his concerns were, because we've been talking about this whole topic of how do I know I'm not reading the dead. Been talking about it since I met him. That's 30 years. Well, now he's on the other side. It's still 35 years. He was always concerned about that. He said he believes now that a lot of mediums don't even know that they're reading the dead. They're not talking to them. They're just convinced themselves that this is the same thing. And he says, and that would be wrong. That would be wrong. And that's okay. Who cares? You're living in a time when you're meant to go direct, where you can. So you don't have to worry about, is that medium authentic or not? It's like, just stay in your world, in your reality, in your universe, with your loved ones, with your guides and your angels, and ignore all the other mediums and psychics. You are the only medium and psychic that you need. That's our basic message. Be your own medium. Be your own psychic. Be your own guru. You don't even really need us either. I'm just here reflecting back to you what you may have wanted to hear or learn or know, or maybe you reject it because you wanted to experience the contrast. It's all good. It's all good. Let go of judging anything as right or wrong and good and bad, because that's, again, plugging into the world of duality, of polarity. That's not how non-duality source energy sees it. It's all like part of growth. And it's okay. You can have your preference of what you want to experience, but just understand that, you came here to have the hot and the cold, and the so-called good and the so-called bad, right? The opposites. You wanted to experience that. In fact, Alan says that we are so excited on the other side of coming into any reality where there's contrast, because there is none over there. And so we can't wait to come into different dimensions, the different realities, planets, whatever, to experience different things, because it's exciting. Otherwise it's just boring if everything is just vanilla, right? Or Alan keeps showing me Pleasantville. If it's all like that movie Pleasantville, it would be boring. So Lisa says, I'm going to pull it up here. Lisa says, once I found you and Alan, I realized I wouldn't need mediumship training. No, nobody needs really mediumship training. Nobody needs it. Okay, let me see here. So Joe was saying, grief is such a natural path for channeling, but how do you keep the connection strong once the grief fades along with intense feelings of love for everyone and everything? I don't feel that fades at all. It's quite the opposite. It's completely the opposite. Your connection grows stronger when your grief fades. If you are believing that, then you are creating that. That's how powerful you are. But it's really about, as Alan said to me, it's about us coming alive. Because if you're not feeling the intense love and emotion, etc., it just means that you're shut down still emotionally. Because when he came back to me, he just said, you have to come alive, you have to come alive. And that's why he kept sending me song after song after song and wanted me to sing it in the kitchen and dance and all that. And I don't do that as much as before. I listened to our songs, but I was doing that. I felt compelled to do that. And he said, this is how you come alive, because most people are somewhat dead. So it's that, if anything. So Joe said, okay, so Joe, you're saying, well, it hasn't for me because I get really busy. You mean the grief hasn't faded? Is that what you're saying? Because you're saying, well, it hasn't for me because I get really busy with life and I feel like that cuts me off. But again, what I'm hearing is from the other side, they're saying that you're choosing to believe that you're being busy cuts you off. This is why we're teaching awakening clairsentience, so that people start to feel their loved ones when they're doing their day-to-day chores, when they are at work, when they are out supposedly busy, okay? Because you can feel them. You don't have to. In fact, I don't recommend that you just do that in meditation, although that is another way. Obviously, you can have deep meditation. But I'll tell you, the universe quickly taught me by bringing me a client who could experience her partner incredibly in a deep meditation. But then because of that, here's where polarity comes in, okay? Because of that, like I experienced him in deep meditation, then the opposite then is also in play, meaning that she didn't believe she could experience him unless she was in deep meditation. So experiencing him when she was eyes wide open, awake, not in meditation, doing her day-to-day life, she couldn't experience it. But that's because she's exploring that and has a belief, chosen a belief that that was the ultimate, that was superior. Okay. This is when you don't want to get locked into polarity where you say, well, this is the best. And the other side, because there's always the opposite, right? The opposite was not meditating, not in deep state, just eyes wide awake, alert, like, oh, I can't do it when I'm doing there. You want to be in the middle, people, where you have access to both. We could go, oh, I can connect in deep meditation. I can connect when I'm busy, walking around, living my life, out to dinner with people, whatever. Okay. You want to be in neutrality. Neutrality doesn't mean you don't feel anything. Neutrality means you have access to both. Does that make sense? So, and remember that your beliefs have everything to do with your experience of connection or your experience of lack of connection. Thoughts manifest instantly. And the good news, I was going to say good, bad news, but there's no good or bad, right? But this is just the truth. Because we're all evolving, this means that your thoughts and your words have even more power now. And so you're more instantly manifesting things. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Because it's just things like this are happening to me, like, well, they happen to me all the time, but lately it's been coming home to me. So the other day I went out with my son. We went out for breakfast and we were talking, we're driving along, and I was talking, I don't know how we got to talking about it, but I told him, oh, my first car that I ever had was a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle. That's a really old car, right? Some of you go, what's a Beetle, right? Like, go Google it or something. So it was a Beetle, turquoise color. That car made me so happy. That Beetle, that drive it, and I bought this car. It was a stick shift. I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. I knew only how to drive automatic, but I didn't care. I had to have that car. My boyfriend at the time knew how to drive stick shift, so he was able to drive the car off the lot for me. And he said, oh, I can teach you how to drive stick shift, which I learned in a day. Like, it was easy. But that car, I loved it so much. Then I got married. My first husband, that was a mistake, but that's okay. And this is how the kind of person I am. When I would break up with somebody, I would usually kind of give them everything. Like, they want what they want, take it. You want my set of dishes, you can have it. You want my TV, you can have it, right? I just want to go. And I'm very generous anyway. So anyway, my ex, he needed a car, and I was moving back in with my family, and I knew that I'd have a car. I didn't need a car. So I gave him my Beetle. And my son was saying, "Oh, Mom, you should have kept that car. It would have been, because that would be like an antique now, right? It'd be like a custom car." And I go, "Yeah, but I would have had to pay for it being preserved, for 30 something, whatever, a year, 35 years or so." And I go, "I couldn't have done that." And so we both came to realization that we both liked the Beetle car, right? And I said, "Oh, my dream would be to have a Beetle convertible, the same color, that turquoise." Okay, so we were talking about that. He goes, "Yeah, that'd be really cool. I would like that too." I said, and he looked it up on his phone, like, how much would it cost? He goes, "Oh my God, Mom, it's like, this is be like cost a fortune because this is a very rare vintage car now, right? Obviously, they don't make them anymore." So do you know that that day we saw a Beetle? We saw a, it wasn't turquoise, but we saw a Beetle car. And I was just shocked because I rarely ever see it, right? I saw it with him that day. The next day, I go out with him and his partner's girlfriend, and we're driving, and we see another one, but this time it's a convertible. The other one wasn't a convertible. This one was a convertible. So we start joking, going, "Okay, it must be that we're going to get this Beetle because we keep seeing them everywhere we go." We also saw one in a lot, like a used car lot, like another one. I mean, like all of a sudden we're seeing them everywhere. Okay, because that is where our programming, our consciousness. Okay, this is what we want. So whether I get it or not, it's fine. It doesn't matter. I told him, "You manifest it," because he just got a new job and he's making good money. So I said, "You make a lot of money and you go get that car and I'm going to borrow it from you." He goes, "Okay, done, Mom." So you are the creator of your reality. You're the programmer, player of your reality. Okay, it's just how it is. So if you believe that you're having connection, and let go of any doubt that comes in your mind, you will have it, because the truth is you can never be disconnected except in your thinking. Because remember, one of the laws of creation, you are one with all that is. You are one with your loved ones. You cannot not be one with them. But you are so powerful, and everyone is manifesting so powerfully and instantly now, that if you even for a second hold the thought that you can't connect, boom, the universe is going to give you that. And the more you keep thinking it, the more you're going to get it, because the universe says yes to whatever you choose to think. So we all need to be more aware of our thoughts and our language all the time. And if you find yourself saying something like, "I feel disconnected," then immediately, to cancel it out, say, "But I know that I am connected." Because what it's happening is, you folks, some of you are not believing in your power, but the universe is showing it to you, showing that as soon as you think that, here you go. "I don't hear him or feel him anymore." Here you go, more of that. "I don't feel the connection anymore." Okay, here you go, more of that. Mean it when I tell you that that's how it works. Instant. Okay. I think even Abraham Hicks talks about how we're getting so good at manifesting, all of us, that eventually people are going to have to teach classes about how not to manifest instantly, something like that, because it's going to be like, oh my God, oh, what did I say? Here it is. We're serious about that. This is what's going to happen. What's happening now? It's just going to happen more and more. It's going to ramp up. You're going to go, "Oh crap!" As soon as I thought that, it's right here. So even if you haven't yet experienced the connection as strong, then still say it like it's getting stronger. Every day, in every way, my connection is getting stronger. If that's, unless you don't want that. Unless you want to keep saying, "I don't have connection," and you want more of that. Because right there, Joe, and Alan says, we love you very much, Joe. But right there, you writing, connection hasn't gotten stronger. You've actually, it densifies, it forms in your field. That reality becomes, the more you keep thinking that it's concrete, and it will pinch off your connection more. You can't talk about something, you can't talk about anything without manifesting it. Let me repeat that. You cannot talk about anything without giving it energy and manifesting it in your reality. So be very, I don't want to say careful because that's negative, but be very discerning about what you say to others, what you think, and what you write, because all of it, psychics have seen this. There are people who can see energy that comes out of people's mouth as shapes, literally. Okay, you are making it manifest in your world. Talk about what you prefer to have in your life instead. This is where it can help for you to be completely delusional about what you prefer and talk about it as if it's already done, because then you can shift into the reality, the frequency that matches up with that. Because for everything that you say, like, oh, I'm disconnected, the opposite reality also was created. Because we're living in the world of multidimensionality and polarity. So you want to understand, right, how the universe works. So you don't want to talk about what you don't prefer. You don't want to talk about your disease unless you want to anchor it more into your reality. You want to talk about how you're feeling healthier and healthier every day. That is a bilateral approach, right? You're not hitting it head on saying, you don't even necessarily want to talk about healing, because the opposite of healing is disease, right? I know many of you are watching in our program, so you're going, huh? I go, we're going to dive more into that in our teachings. You don't want to talk about, you want to be in the middle, be a neutral, right? So being neutral is like, okay, I'm having this great experience. I'm growing stronger. I'm connecting in ways that are perfect for me. That kind of sounds general, right? Like when I say I'm connecting with Alan in ways that are perfect for me, it is kind of more broad and general, right? Like I'm not saying I'm not connected, I'm disconnected. I'm not saying, geez, I'm just completely like in oneness. I'm kind of being more in the middle, like I'm having this great connection. That's an easier way to flow with this, so that you're not fixated on it has to be a certain way. Because if some of you are saying to yourself, but I want it to be in this specific way, or a way that I experienced before, and you're fixated, right? You're focused on that. I want it to be exactly how it was the last time when it was so amazing. You're actually hurting yourself in a sense, because you're being insistent that it be a certain way, and you're limiting yourself, because your experience could be so much bigger. But here you are fixated on, I want it, insistent, right? I want it to be like this. Be more flexible and in the middle, and have a positive attitude about it. Because here's another thing that helps. I know this might sound paradoxical, but you want to remain positively focused about your connection, yet be persistent in connecting, but without trying, without the efforting, right? Being persistent in this way just means you're positively focused and you appreciate whatever level of connection you have, because you're not putting any definition on it, you're not putting any timetable on it, you're not making any assumption about it. You're just saying, I'm leaning into feeling the connection, however way it may come, whether it's subtle or intense. I let go of expectation, and I'm just going to celebrate that I have a connection, whether or not I can perceive it in any particular way. So I don't know if that helps you, Joe, if you're still here, if you want to drop a comment in there. But being busy in life, and I've counseled people like who've come with me with that same thing. And I said to them, wait a minute, I'm not letting you off the hook with that one. And here's why. Everybody has to go to sleep at night. Is that true or not true? Everybody has at least a few minutes before they fall asleep. True or not true? I don't see anybody like arguing with me. Because of that, you have a few minutes when you go to sleep and when you wake up. And that's all the time you need to practice connecting with someone across the veil. Those are, in fact, the perfect times to do that. To fall asleep, imagining your loved one their head is on a pillow next to you. Whether there is a pillow there or not doesn't matter, because they don't actually need a physical pillow. But you imagining that they're there as best you can, whether you see them in your mind's eye or not, eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. But imagining they're there, looking at you, whatever way you can, just laying there and seeing them, you want to put energy into that, because you are then creating that reality. Very few people are doing that. If you are doing that, tell me in the chat. Or if you've done it at all, tell me in the chat. Your imagination is how you build the connection. So if you're saying people that you don't feel the connection, you're probably not using your imagination to build the connection. You're waiting passively for it to happen. You're putting it all on their shoulders. Some of them can come through without us doing that using our imagination, okay? Because they're all at different levels. But all of them appreciate and benefit from us doing our part, which is using the power of our God source imagination to open the door, to form the bridge, to start creating this third space, this third reality where we can interact. You interact through your imagination. If you're not willing to use your imagination, then this may not go well for you. So one of the limiting beliefs you have to transform is the one that says imagination is fantasy and it's not real. It's the opposite. Imagination gives you access to the real world. Remember what I said, this world is not real. Okay. As we started the session off today, talking about, that interview, right, with Donald Hoffman, he says this reality isn't real. So you have to use your imagination to go to the real world. This is a complete reverse of what you were taught about this planet, about this world. Okay, but you see how it means that you need to reset your belief system? Because the programming is so heavy and you're part of the collective programming, to unplug from the matrix of that programming takes a little bit of practice. This is why we're even teaching to begin with, and why probably most of our students are going to stay with us for the rest of their life, because this is a lifelong journey. You can get further ahead. It doesn't mean you need to be with us, but there's a lot of benefit by being with people who believe as you believe, because they reinforce you and they help you. And this is so in contrast to what the physical world, belief system is. So does that make sense? You are the creator of your reality. And no, if you open up to all of your senses, unlike what Hoffman says, it's not going to kill you. It's just that you have energy to use because you've raised your frequency. It's only raising your frequency that you get more of that energy, so that now you can see different realities because you're vibrating at a higher rate, right? People who don't have that energy, yeah, it's tougher. So when you go to sleep at night, imagine your loved one there as best you can, or feel them. Maybe you don't see them in your mind, but you have a sense of them. When you use your imagination, what you're doing is you're meeting them halfway. And they can step into that. This is what Spirit showed me, and Alan showed me too. He says, you're creating this third space that is more a blend of this world and the next. So we can meet in the hallway of our imagination and then start to interact. And what you'll find is you start to see them doing things or appearing in a way to you that surprises you. And you know that you didn't conjure that. But in the beginning, it will usually take you imagining what they look like, or doing your best at it, but then you are creating the space for them to step into it. This is what we teach in our Bridge to Heaven sessions, where we help people make contact through the veil by guiding them to create this space where they can connect, okay? But that is real. The other time is when you wake up in the morning and you're just kind of not all fully awake, right? You're kind of half awake. You're in between. And there are people, and I've talked to many of them, who say that they have these incredible experiences, or maybe even have a sense of themselves as this expanded version of themselves. Yeah, because when you go to sleep at night, everybody goes out of body and you become who you really are without your negative ego. Maybe, well, let me kind of preface that a little bit, give you some context there, though, because when you go out of body, if you've got a lot of fear beliefs, you're going to encounter those fear beliefs as you exit your body. And so that's where some people come right back in the body because they encounter their fear belief. So in other words, if you're going out of body and all of a sudden you think, oh, maybe there are demons here, you're going to create a demon. Because remember, thoughts create. So the instant you think of a demon, right there is a demon in your face, and you go back in your body because the fear brings you back in your body. But in the morning, you're probably not, that's not what's going on, but you're still connected, you're blended with the spirit world. So if you can, I suggest that you spend a little time transitioning from being asleep to being partially awake, kind of groggy, right? And use that time to connect, if you can, with your loved one. You can use your imagination again. You can just slip back into that dream again. But those are the two transition times, going to sleep, waking up, that everybody has. So the idea that anybody's too busy to not use your imagination to practice connecting, I'm sorry, but that just went out the window. Unless you're a person that as soon as you put your head on the pillow, you're out. Right? You're out. Like you put your head on the pillow, you're asleep. And you wake up in the morning, you're awake. But that is like maybe 1% of the population, if at all. Somebody who falls asleep readily usually takes about 5 minutes to fall asleep. That's 5 whole minutes that you can practice undisturbed, because we're going to assume that when you fall asleep, there's not like a gaggle of people around you keeping you awake, that you're in your room, that you're by yourself, that it's quiet, and that you can focus. All right. We're going to wrap things up here because we went long enough, but we love you and appreciate you. We've got some videos that we're working on. We're bringing our book, Supernatural Love, right back here, Supernatural Love, right over here, that we wrote together. We're bringing that to life. We're creating our own, not really an audio book, but we're going to create excerpts from that book using Alan's voice that I cloned that sounds incredibly like him, and my own voice in there that actually I've cloned that sounds incredibly like me too, and is a reflection of me because I say so, and this is my universe. So we're bringing our book, some excerpts of it to life, and we're going to drop it here on our channel for you to experience and for you to feel, because this is the truth, again, as I know it. A cloned voice of my husband is still an extension of him because he's a spirit and he can project himself into that voice. Even if the voice isn't 100% perfect, which it usually isn't going to be, it still carries his energy. Because here's the last thing I want to leave with you on that, with that theme, okay? As I'm talking to you now, as I've talked to you now for 2 hours, and as his cloned voice comes through too, there's more than just words that we're saying. We're projecting our consciousness. We're projecting to you so much more than just the language, the words that we're saying. And people who are sensitive can perceive that. They can perceive worlds within worlds and energies and frequencies and concepts. There's so much more coming through. And that's why I know that me speaking to you is more powerful even than you seeing me. And so that's why we're creating more audios of our voice, of my voice and Alan's, to interact with you. Okay, because we are engaging with you through me speaking, because words and thoughts create. So my intention for speaking to you this way through my real voice and my clone voice is to support you in awakening, to support you in transformation, whatever that means to you. That's always our intention. And so you may have noticed a shift, or you may not have. It doesn't matter. You're on your own journey. But if you have felt anything or had any shift or realization, please let us know in the comments, okay? Otherwise, we look forward to connecting to you next week, Friday, at the same time, and having more connection and communication with you. Sorry, I didn't not keeping up with all the comments here. Kind of stalled here in a minute. Yeah, and please, if you watch to the end, please leave a comment on the video, not just in the live chat. It helps the video get shown more. And that matters huge because YouTube doesn't know what to do with these concepts. So we really need you folks to get the word out and share the video, and commenting really helps the video get shown more by YouTube. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.